Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Barry Kammer. I am a member of this congregation. And on behalf of Arlington Community Church, we welcome all of you here. In the United Church of Christ, as Ralph knows, we have a saying that we use every Sunday, and we'll use it today. No matter who you are, no matter where you are on life's journey, no matter what your religion is, what your color is, and what your politics are, no matter who you are welcome in this place today. Amen. I also welcome you on behalf of Larry, Luca, and Sarah and their family to the celebration, this release, remembrance, and celebration of our sister, Margaret. I would invite you to do with me exactly what Margaret would do right now. She would lean her head back just a little bit. She'd close her eyes, and she'd just take a few breaths. This is the season of Lent, and the theme for this year's Lent is running from empty. So today I invite you to empty yourself of all the detritus in the world that follows you, and empty yourself enough to let Margaret and all our memories in. I will note that we have lit the candles for Ukraine and Syria and Turkey. Not only do we want it that way, Margaret would have it that way. Because in addition to what we're doing here, the rest of the world goes on. So that represents our prayers for peace and safety and justice for everybody. Let us first release.
This all began for me and others here over 60 years ago as a classmate of Margaret Zipsey's in Union Seminary and Al Carmine's, and then later in the 60s with Larry and all the stuff that went on in Judson Church and then beyond. And the words that I came across in our traditions seem to me to enhance the way we can have jubilation over the kind of families that grow out of love. And I'm thankful that we got into that family love. As Gertrude Stein might say, a family was created and we were in it. The souls of the just are in the hand of God, and no affliction will ever touch them. To the eyes of fools, they seem to be dead. Their departure will be interpreted as defeat, and their going away will be considered a disaster. But they have found peace. For though to mortals they may have suffered greatly, their hope is in life everlasting. And after a time of trial, they will receive great blessings because God has found them worthy. They are purified like gold in a crucible. Their lives are accepted fully, more precious than any offering. And as their time comes, they shine and sweep over the world like sparks through the chaff. Those who have put their trust in God will find out that this is all true. And those who are faithful will dwell in God's love. For these are God's chosen ones, and grace and mercy belong to them. Let the people say, Amen. Amen.
Hello. This is a blessed gathering. I met Margaret and Larry for the first time 16 years ago in this church. And Margaret became my godmother as an adult. And she helped me through a long discernment process. I was trying to discern whether I was a Christian who embraced Buddhism or a Buddhist with deep Christian roots. You can see how my discernment process ended. And Margaret was with me through all of that. She held my hand along with Larry. So Sarah asked me to find a reading in our tradition to honor her, and this is the one I chose. These are the Buddha's words on loving kindness. If you feel comfortable, I invite you to put your palms together as we read the sutra. Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. This is the Metta Sutta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways. Peaceful and calm, wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature, let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing in gladness and in safety that all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. And even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. And then I end in a traditional fashion. We dedicate the merit of the goodness of all of us coming together to remember Margaret. May the merit from this practice adorn all the Buddha's lands, repay the kindness from above, and rescue those in paths below. May all who see or hear of this resolve upon awakening, and when this body meets its end, be born together in the land of bliss.
Shalom Aleichem, peace be upon you, everyone. I'll come closer. Shalom Aleichem, peace be upon you, everyone. So grateful to be here with all of you and to meet you. Larry and your mother seemed like such an incredible woman, and I didn't have the honor or blessing of meeting her, and just in being with the words that you sent to us and getting to spend some time in her legacy and memory, it's an honor to be among those who she loved and were loved by her. So we turn now to the kaddish prayer, and the kaddish is a traditional prayer of grief and mourning in the Jewish tradition that is said upon the passing of a loved one. However, if we look at the words on the page that says the mourner's kaddish, we see that there is not one word of grief or mourning. The entire prayer is just praising God, praising the great name, and praising life. And so we have the opportunity, as those of us who are here on this earth, still in bodies, still alive, to be in life and to praise life on behalf of our beloved who has passed. And so as we come together in community, the Kaddish prayer is often said in community. It actually must be said in community, in a group of 10 or more people. And so we know that grief and remembrance happens in community. And so we invite you today to say this prayer and the celebration of life and the oneness that Margaret is now a part of and within the tapestry of life together. And we'll invite Sarah to come up and say the kaddish. The prayer is in Aramaic, so if you know it, we invite you to rise in body or spirit, or to stay seated, whatever you're comfortable with. You can recite along in the Aramaic if you know it, and if not, we invite you to respond in affirmation with the bold-faced words. And I'll be saying those as well, so you can follow along with me as Jeanette leads the prayer with Sarah.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabba. Amen. Be'alma divarach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevorach le'olam u'le'olmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shmei dekudsha b'richu le'ela michol birchata v'shirata tushvachata v'nechemata da'amiram be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba mim shamaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru. Amen.
May her memory be for a blessing.
Yael and I are now going to sing a beautiful version of Psalm 23, which is often sung or recited at Jewish memorial services, or at the time of year when we traditionally remember those who have passed away. Yael will be singing in Hebrew and I'll be singing in English, and once you hear the English, it'll probably sound familiar to many of you.
Hashem Roi
breath is returned and my soul can rest, though I travel the path of the shadowed edge, even there, I will not fear, for you, my beloved, are with
I invite you into a time of quiet and meditation. I invite you to be aware of your breath. I invite you to be aware of your memories of Margaret. Let's be together in silence and meditation. I first met Margaret when I joined this congregation 8 or 9 years ago. All my intuition, all my lights started blinking and began to flash to me a very clear message. I want to be this woman's friend. Immediately, I put her on a pedestal, not because that's where she wanted to be, but because that's how she carried herself. She was calm, clear, insightful, without ego, and she exuded a warmth that I just wanted to touch me. We sat on a committee together and I noticed that when she was in the room, I tended to talk less. It was such a joy to listen to her. We spoke about preaching together one day. I was so impressed that she had written a book about wholeness. I was jealous. She probably had a little too much humility. But before long, she made me feel like her equal. What a gift. She was the kind of person that I just wanted to be with. I wanted to be in the same room with her, to be in the presence of that personality. We didn't have to do anything. I just wanted to be in that room. She invited me home to lunch one day. And that's when I met Larry. A more interesting couple I have never met. They were meant for each other, and yet they were two wildly different people. I'll tell you more about Larry during the reception afterwards. Now back to Margaret. Margaret's world changed about 6.5 years ago when a driver hit them broadside. Margaret almost died. Larry was injured as well. Surgery, near paralysis, Margaret lying in the hospital bed, not able to move much at all. I sat with her and I asked her that very important question that pastors have to ask. Do you want to live? Because when someone is in that condition, if they didn't want to live, it was my job to give them permission to go. Margaret thought for about 3 seconds, and a full-throated response, which was odd for her at the time. She looked at me and said, "Yes." Tenacity. Margaret knew what she wanted, and she wanted to live. I made the glorious mistake of asking her if there's anything I could do. She said, "I'd like you to visit me every week." And for 6.5 years, with very few exceptions, I visited Margaret, and then when Larry moved down into her room, Larry and Margaret, every Tuesday at 2:30, with a chai latte for Margaret and a coffee latte for Larry. Visiting Margaret was a lot like coming to church. Some days you just don't want to go. Last Sunday, I woke up, I was lying in bed, and I said, "I just want to stay in bed." And as soon as I made myself get up and showered and shaved and into church, the moment I walked through the door and saw the people of Arlington Community Church, all my reticence went away. I was among family. I was with the people that I loved and the people that loved me. It was the same with Margaret and Larry. Oh, I almost always wanted to go, but sometimes I just wanted to stay home. I just wanted to sit by the fire. I just wanted to be left alone. But the moment I walked through that door and saw Larry's face first, and then Margaret sitting in her wheelchair, having made sure that she was dressed well, her hair was done, she had some form of necklace on, I walked in and I go, I'm where I'm loved, and I'm with the people that I love. And all my reticence went away. For the first few years, it was just Margaret and me. Larry lived upstairs. I wore several hats with Margaret. She considered me her pastor, her counselor, her friend, her colleague as a pastoral counselor. And every once in a while, she and Larry became my counselors. They knew when I had something I needed to learn or feel. And it was a joy to be with her, not knowing what hat I would wear on any given day, and in the middle of a visit, I might be changing hats. One minute it's friend, the next minute it's counseling. But every moment with Margaret mattered to me. Every Friday morning, I have a Zoom meeting with a whole gaggle of pastoral psychotherapists from ACPE. Most of these folks are former members of the American Association of Pastoral Counselors, of which Margaret was at one time the president. And they all knew and worked with Margaret during her time as president of AAPC. So this morning I asked them if there was a word that came to mind when they remember Margaret. And here's what they shared: nurturing, kindly, determined, forward-looking, gentle-humored, gracious. One told a story of an Atlanta conference of AAPC when they had the Dalai Lama choir show up. And at the same conference, there was a large African American choir that showed up. You may not know this, but when you get two big choirs, not everything is peaceful. And Margaret just navigated those choirs, navigated those human beings, and made everybody feel welcome. If I had to share one aspect of my time and friendship with Margaret, it would be the way in which her eyes spoke volumes. For a time, in my naivete, I thought I was the only person with whom she shared this secret language. But I suspect almost everybody in this room thought you were the only ones that had this language with Margaret. She and I and Larry would be in a conversation, and I would look over to her and she'd just do. So I learned a new language, because there were times when in our conversation I would want to communicate something with her but not feel too pedantic. And so I'd look over to her and she knew exactly the 6 paragraphs of meaning that had. I loved that language. In closing, I'd like to share a short poem called Epitaph by Margaret Malloy. Perhaps these might be words Margaret would speak to all of us today. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the streets beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give to me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live on in your eyes and not your mind. You can love me most by letting hands touch hands, by letting bodies touch bodies, and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that is left of me is love, give me away. There will be a number of speakers today sharing the myriad gifts that Margaret has brought to the world and to them. But of all the myriad gifts that Margaret gave, the greatest gift of all, she was my friend. She was my friend. Thank you, Margaret.
Good afternoon. I am Kathy Forsman, and Margaret is my big sister. I'm certain that she's enjoying this gathering today, and she'll be enjoying every minute of it. Margaret found comfort, joy, and meaning in the prayers of the cosmos. Jesus said, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the consistent in heart, they shall contemplate the One. Healthy are those whose passion is electrified by deep, abiding purpose. They shall regard the power that moves and shows itself in all things. Aligned with the One are those whose lives radiate from a core of love. They shall see God everywhere. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God."
Hello. My name is Michaela Sador, and I have to explain, I knew Margaret more than 50 years. I first met her when I went into therapy with her in my late teens, and over time our relationship evolved. And it says on the program that I'm reading 2 poems by Liesl Mueller, and Sarah and I decided that I would instead read the letter that I wrote to Margaret at the beginning of December. I had a feeling I needed her to know what she had meant to me, and so I wrote this letter. Margaret, dear Margaret, I remember that in our time together, you began to collaborate with me at decoding how I use language. You would ask me, as I said certain words, what I meant by them. The most extreme example I can think of is the word ambitious. For you, it could mean energetic. For me, it echoed with my mom and meant something more like steamroller. I began to hear that I started many of our sessions with the phrase, "I'm afraid that." Finally, I learned to keep in mind the insight. What you experience is real. In time, I could hear the subtexts myself, and once I could look at them, I could decipher them myself. I still do that. What you gave me is a much deeper confidence in the way I understand the world around me. I rely on my internal and immediate reactions. I have learned to let go of thoughts that might echo someone else and just name my own perceptions. I rejoice in language and incorporate it into my tapestries. The tapestry here that says, "What I weave, you read," comes out of the work we did together. It names your part, Margaret, in our efforts. You have made all the difference in the world to the quality of my life. And I do have a good life. I love you, Margaret.
A little bit here. Good afternoon. My name is Lance McCready. You can't hear me? Okay. And I am a friend of the family. I'm the godson of Margaret and Larry. I'm the brother of Sarah, uncle of Luca, and I've grown up with the Kornfelds my entire life. I've known Sarah since we were in the same first grade class. So much of the way that I knew and remember Margaret was actually as a mom. So there's so many things that I remember about Margaret that are, mom type things, like sending Sarah and I to the store to get some bread at the shop, or taking a nap on Margaret's couch in the office at Gramercy Park. I love that couch. I don't know why I always think about that, but it was very peaceful. I love going in there, and it was always very comfortable. So many informal ways that Margaret was really another parent for me, and the Kornfelds, and Larry was too. One of the gifts that Margaret gave to me was that she always made me feel like I was okay the way I am. I mean, that sounds a little sort of basic, but as a black kid from sort of lower income neighborhoods in the Flatbush section of Brooklyn, going to a private school with mostly kids who were wealthier than me, and sort of having sort of my own thoughts and interpretations of things that weren't always the same as my classmates or even my own brothers. I have 3 brothers. Margaret was always, she, as everybody has said here, she was always a great listener. And always made you, even if you didn't always feel present, sort of Margaret made you feel very present, like in that moment. And that was such a gift. And when I went to college and I, one of the times I came back from break, Margaret actually shared with me, she's like, I have something that I want you to read that I've been working on, and I'm writing a book. And I was like, oh, in that sort of young person way, I was like, oh yeah, I think Sarah told me something about that. Or and she literally handed me the first chapter of the book and said, I want you to read it. And I thought that was pretty amazing, because I was like, why would Margaret want me to read a chapter of that book? Or I'm not an editor. I'm not a scholar. I'm not a pastoral counselor. But it made me feel so legitimate and that I had something to contribute. And I know that was part of that belief was something that allowed me to become a professor. Today I'm a professor in the Leadership Higher and Adult Education Department at University of Toronto. And I know it was that belief that was part of what allowed me to persist and earn my PhD. So today, I thought when Sarah was planning, Sarah and Larry were planning this memorial, one of the first things I said was, well, are you gonna read something from Cultivating Wholeness? You have to read something from Cultivating Wholeness. And then Larry said, well, why don't you read it? And I was like, oh, okay. So, one last memory I'll share. I know that Margaret was an avid gardener, and I loved their place in El Sobrante in the huge backyard. I still remember that backyard and all the plants, and Margaret loved to, a couple of times I visited them there, she loved to show off the garden to me and sort of take me on tours, and it was so large that you really could like walk all through the back, and she'd show me this plant that was growing and this one that she was trying to bring back and this one that was amazing and that was native to California. And so gardening was always very important to her, and as you know, it's a very important metaphor in cultivating wholeness, about community. So I thought, and Larry thought that was a really important part that I want to share to you, because, you know, rereading it again now as a professor of adult education and community development, I'm just appreciating it, and it's so rich all over again. So this is from the first chapter, The Ground of Community. The community is the ground of our work. The community supports and upholds us. Now we will begin to consider what we as gardeners must do for the ground. I have made a distinction between ground and soil. In this metaphor, the ground is the community itself with all the properties that make it a safe, healing place. The soil is our religious traditions and our expressions of it. We know that there are as many types of soil that differ in appearance, chemical composition, and use, and we have only to observe the rocky New England soil, the rich soil of the Mississippi Delta, and the dark Midwestern farmland soil to appreciate this variety. I'm just like, why does this look a little blurry? Because my glasses aren't on. And so it is with the soil of our religious communities. Our religious traditions are composed of a variety of gifts. Some communities have rich and complex liturgies. Some meet in silent contemplation. Some experience healing energy of the Holy Spirit through singing and dancing. Others meet for serious, quiet, biblical or Talmudic study. Some communities meet in homes, others in cathedrals. Our soils, traditions differ, but it is our communities that serve as the common ground. Authentic community is the medicine our society needs. We and other mental health professionals know that loneliness, isolation, emptiness, and a sense of meaninglessness are the frequent complaints of those coming for help. Often these complaints are accompanied by symptoms of psychological disorder that can be treated by medication. However, when the symptoms are relieved by medication, often the spiritual malaise is still there. Medication alone cannot quiet this pain, which comes from the depths of the spirit. This is the pain of souls who have been traumatized through internal fragmentation and ruptured relationships. We know that people find healing in community because we have witnessed such healing. We have known those who, through spiritual discernment, listen deeply to themselves and to God and have begun to know themselves. We have seen them come alive. We have watched them make close friendships in the community in which they experience their wholeness. The assertion that religious communities can be healing places gives rise to the essential questions. You might ask, do all communities heal? Some people seem to be healed more through their Alcoholics Anonymous group than through their church. Or isn't a person's faith in God enough for healing? Why do people need a group? Answers to these questions can be found through thorough study of community. To understand community, we must return to our consideration of the ground. The ground in which we plant is made up of many different types and compositions of soil. Our religious gardens are complex and beautiful. They each thrive in the soil of our varied religious traditions. Even though the soils, the religious traditions, differ, the function of the ground is the same in all our gardens, where the ground nurtures, supports, and holds the plants, regardless of the composition of the soil. As we understand more about how community works, we are both able to cultivate the soil and to the rest be supported by the ground. Thank you.
Am I on? Yes. Hello, everyone. Hello. There we go. My name is Courtney B. Vance. And can you hear me, Larry? Barely? You can hear me, okay. And I'm the other son that Margaret had that don't know nobody. I know no one. I just met Miss Sarah, who's my sister from another mister. But I probably like all of you, Barry, I considered her mine. She had that ability. And we met because my father died of suicide when I was 30. And I was on top of the theatrical world. I'm an actor. I was doing 6 Degrees of Separation on Broadway. And I was sleeping. I had a matinee coming up and got a phone call from my mother, hysterical. And my first thought was, wow, Stockard Channing is not going to be able to make it without me. Because we had made a promise to each other we wouldn't take shows off because it was hard to, the rhythms were. And so I called Stockard and I said, Stockard, my father died of suicide and I've got to go home. And she said, Courtney, go, of course. I said, but Stockard, what are you going to? She said, Courtney, go. So, long story, went home with my sister and we got my mother's effects together and came back a month later and I'm doing the show and of course the cast, you know, like a glove supported me. And Laura Linney, I don't know if any of you know of her, brilliant actress, she was an understudy at the time. And she said, Courtney, I want to give you, something. There's a therapist, the massage therapist, bless you, there's a massage therapist named Gunilla Asp. I want to give you her as a gift for a massage. So I went to Gunilla, and Gunilla, she's Swedish, I believe, or Scandinavian. I probably insulted somebody, but she was dressed in all white, okay? All right, she was dressed in all white, and before we started our session, she said, Courtney, is there anything I need to know? I said, well, my father just died of suicide. She broke, I broke, And we started our session. And at the end of our session, she said, Courtney, I know of someone who's perfect for you, for where you are in life. And I said, oh, okay, because I was trying to, my mother, she told my sister and I when we left, we're leaving Detroit, so where I'm from, she said, when you go back to your respective cities, find a therapist. I'm going to do the same thing here in Detroit, and we're going to break this curse. So make sure you do that. And we said, okay, Mommy. So I began my process, which is, I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know what to do. How do you find a therapist? I don't know. I was sat with people, and it just didn't work. I was at a loss. And so she said, go to see Margaret Kornfeld, Dr. Margaret Kornfeld. I said, okay. So and that night I had a dream. And there was something about there was a cloth in it that I remember, some fabric, pattern, and that's all I remember. And so the next day, I came into her office and shook her hand. And as soon as I shook her hand, I knew that that's my therapist. But she said, Courtney, there's 2 areas to the office. We can do our sessions over here, to the right. And it was kind of cold in there. So I said, okay. And she said, then you can look to the left, and there's another area over here, and there was a couch. And on the couch was the fabric or color or pillow that was in my dream. And I said, I'm home, we're gonna be over here. And so we began, and she said, Courtney, do you have the patience to let the mud settle in the water and the water become clear? I said, no. What you talking about, Willis? Nobody doesn't pay. She said, Courtney, how do you make decisions? I said, what a question. I said, well, I flip a coin. I'm an actor. I flip a coin and make a choice. And she said, that's wonderful, Courtney, for the theater. But for life, it's potentially deadly. So I think she knew where we needed to go. So she was probing. So she said, Courtney, she whispered, Courtney. So Courtney, I want you to get your dream. Do you dream, Courtney? I said, I don't know. I called her Dr. K. Dr. K, I don't know. I don't. If I do, I don't remember them. I mean, what do you want me to do? She said, Courtney, I'd like you to get your dreams. I said, okay. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how do you do that? It's like finding a therapist. How do you do that? I said, okay. And so that was the session ended, something, blah, 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 blah. So I started my process. I said, okay, okay, There was no internet, so I couldn't go on my phone and look up dream. I couldn't do so. I said, okay, well, maybe the new school. I went through the process, maybe at the new school. So I looked up the new school, and somehow, I can't remember how I did it, but I said, let me look in their little program or whatever. And in the new school, there was a dream workshop. And I said, oh, there it is. So the dream workshop, and I went to my stage manager at the time for 6, and I said, I think I'm going to be sick in a month. I had earned the right to do that. I'd been doing the show for about a year at that time. So I feel it coming on in a month. And it's going to be for a weekend, I think. So I said, tell my understudy to get ready, because I got to go to this. So he said, no problem, Corday, I got you. So I went to the workshop, and it was a woman named Gail Delaney, and the book was called Breakthrough Dreaming. And I started, she said, nobody can interpret your dreams but you. A blue sky to you is different than a blue sky to me. So, and all you have to do to get your dreams is get a little notebook with a pencil and a flashlight. And as soon as you wake up, the first thing you write down, first you think of write it down. You're training your mind to go, where was I? And so after 3 nights of that, whoosh, they came. And I guess whenever it was, that week I got about 50 of them. I wake up, I have to go to bed at 9:30, by 11 o'clock, by 2 o'clock in the morning I wake up and I start, I'd wake up and get them, write them down, go back to sleep. So I get 6, 7, 8 a night. And by the end of the week I had about 35, 40, 50, something like that. And I came into the next session to see Dr. K and I said, there's 50. How's that? She said, okay, Courtney. Okay, so now that you've done that, we're going to choose one and you bring it in and we'll work that one. We'll work off of that one, okay? So every week I came in with a dream and she said, Courtney, what is that? What does that mean? And so that's how we would work. So we did that for about 1.5 years. And I have about 30 books that are about 100 pages each, 8 by 10, full of dreams, titled, and table of contents. And I invited Dr. K to my wife and I's wedding. We've been married 25 years now. My wife is Angela Bassett. And she pulled me aside somewhere before the wedding or after the wedding. I can't remember. Probably after the wedding. I wouldn't be able to think before the wedding, but after the wedding, she pulled me aside. She said, Courtney, we did some amazing work, I said, what do you mean? We did? I mean, I would imagine you have a lot of clients. We did some amazing work? She said, yes, Courtney. You didn't know, but you weren't laying on a couch or anything, but we were working off your subconscious and we were doing analysis. I said, wow. Wow. So that little lady helped this. I mean, one of the images, the strongest images I have is Gramercy Park. Sitting there on the stoop, because of course in Gramercy Park, you couldn't go in the park unless you had a key, which meant you lived around in one of the buildings around Gramercy Park. So it was a very exclusive club, a very exclusive park. So, young black man, there was nowhere to sit as I'm waiting for my session, so I would oftentimes sit on her stoop outside the office, which was, it wasn't a stoop, it was a step. And then I'm the only black person in the area, and I'm sitting on the step, and white people are walking by me, looking down at me, clutching, and I'm feeling all of a failure as a man and a black young man at 30, and I would go into this session, and maybe it was that one session I sat there and I came and I brought it, of course, into the session. I said, she said, Courtney, how are you feeling today? I said, Dr. K, I feel less than. I feel I'm nothing. I don't feel I'm worthy. In the show, I don't feel like it took me 8 months to feel comfortable in the show, because for some reason I just couldn't find it. And I would lose my place, and it was very hard for me. I lost about 15 pounds. For the first 8 months, I couldn't be comfortable. And I said, I'm not comfortable there. I'm not comfortable in my life. I'm not comfortable. The only place I'm comfortable is right here with you. And And from that point, she began to build me, help me, so that I can stand anywhere with any group of people and feel I am somebody, that I've come from great people, that I come from a great family, and that life happens, and it's okay. Wherever you are, it's okay, Court. You'll get through it, we'll get through it together, and eventually I started, and then when I left New York, because it was time, and I moved to LA, and I would, for the next year and a half, we would work instead of, what was it, 5 o'clock, no, 8 o'clock in the morning, that was when our time was. It was in LA, we would work at 5 o'clock in the morning. So for a year and a half, because that was one of the things for me, was that I finally realized, because in our first session, I would talk to Mila a minute, and she said, Courtney, you don't have to tell me everything today. Okay? But what I realized is that this 50 minutes, because it wasn't an hour, you should have 10 minutes before the hour, 50 minutes, was my time. I could talk about anything I wanted to talk about. So I realized that I finally had a space that was my space, and after 3 years, maybe 2.5 years, for the last 6 months, I was basically reporting back to her what was happening and how I reacted and what I did and how I was able to pivot and go this way when they took me this way. And she said, Courtney, I think it's time for you to go your own way. I think it's time now. I said, no, Dr. K, really? I mean, I'm kind of, what? She said, yes, Courtney, I think it's, right? Cool. I said, okay, Dr. K. And I went on, and so when I got married and she met Angela, she, of course, approved and gave me that little, here we go. So, I just came by, and with my sister from another mister, Miss Sarah, I just came by to say, and to Mr. Larry, Professor, Doctor Larry, I don't know nobody, but I know in my spirit I know everybody, because that lady took this young black man who didn't know who he was or whose he was, and she helped me see that I did have the patience to let the mud settle in the water and the water become clear. And that I was preparing, she helped me prepare myself for my wife and my children and this world, to be able to give, because that's what we're ultimately here for, is to help and to give. And that's my motto, that's my mantra. What can I do? How can I help? Is there anything you need me to do? And our children, Bronwyn and Slater, they know that about me. My wife and I model. And I said, life is not 50-50. Sometimes it's 300-0. And you have to understand that, and it's not always fair, and it never will be fair. And you have to learn how to navigate life. And one of my things that I like to say, I don't know where I got it from, I said, if it wasn't for the people, this would be a wonderful world. You have to learn how to deal with the people. And whatever we choose to do, whatever profession we chooses us, we have to learn how to, and she taught me, helped me learn how to deal with the people who are wonderfully maddening. But they're our brothers and our sisters. So thank you so much for my time, and bless you, family, my new family. Bless you. Thank you.
Oh, hello. Thank you all for being here and for being such rock stars with your masks on and off. I want to first point out that the paintings, okay, just to take a minute. This painting behind us is a Mary Frank, and that with the horse is a Mary Frank, and those pieces were in bartering with Mom for therapy. In fact, I believe that this piece was made in therapy. Extraordinary story around that. And these are Michaela's weavings all along here. And this below here is by Don Heron, who is a wild photographer who did a famous series of naked tub people in the theater people. But here's Mom sitting here if you'd like to look at it. I just wanted to be able to provide some context why we put the pictures up. I actually wasn't going to read anything because my dad was like, remember, Dad, you said, you don't have to talk. You don't have to write anything down. You've done enough writing, done enough organizing. And then 2 nights ago, I realized, no, I think I have something concrete to say. So I'm going to read it. So I'd like to begin reading what my godsister, Maya Dollarhide, wrote to Dad the night that Mom died. Dear Larry, she was a brilliant, fierce light of soft grace. I'm forever grateful for her love. Dad and I feel that Maya's insightful and beautiful statement captures Mom so perfectly. We felt her light and her grace all the time, though especially in the last years of her life when she seemed to truly become herself. Mom was experienced by most people as soft, sweet, and kind. She really was all of these things, though she was also really fierce. If there was something that needed to get done, she would see it, kindly remind you, then give you that smile. That smile. And you would do it. So kind and Scandinavian tough. I think that her composure made her really stand out. She always held her chin up a bit when she was happy. She always held her chest up and had her shoulders back when saying something important. She lit up a room and she moved briskly at all 5 feet 2 inches of her in any setting she was in. Fierce light, soft grace. Though this memory of her is before the accident. That's when she was walking, when she didn't even know how to walk or talk or why that would be important. For in truth, her fierce light and soft grace, as Maya rightly describes her, shifted in amazing ways because of the accident. Before I can describe that, I need to share a secret. Mom worried about not being good enough. Not only that, she was even regretful that she may not have been perfect for many. This wasn't a huge thing, but she thought about it, and she was human, so this is what plagued her. And this kind of self-doubt was certainly taught to her and many women in her generation. An insane demand for goodness with the requirement of being as perfect as possible. No one can live up to that, but she really tried. She really, really tried. She was a good person, as good as she can be, and she tried to do it perfectly. Then, as she later said to me, the accident was a gift. In the first 10 minutes at the hospital, within 25 minutes of my getting a call from the emergency crew at the scene, my mother was already charming the paramedics. Before I could sign a piece of paper, the paramedics told me how much they loved her and wished her well. And when I looked at my mom immobile in a neck brace, I felt the air change. Because truly nothing about her was moving. The energy of her had shifted. Her eyes were alert, but she was very calm. Soon the doctor had the x-ray of her spine and back. He'd push it up into the light so she could see it, and we immediately saw how her neck was broken with damage everywhere. The gist of it was that he could operate and she might live, might walk. Or, he offered, he could not operate and let her go. Mom moved her eyes to me and calmly said, "Well, this is real." And I remember saying something like I agreed, and then I asked her directly, "Do you want to live?" And she didn't answer right away. She thought about it a bit, made up her mind, and said, "Yeah." At that moment, we decided that she was going to live, though in a way that simply ruled dying out completely. Before she went into the operating room, she told me, "I'll walk again." And again, I believed her. She wasn't being cocky. She just decided it and to believe it. I told Dad she wanted to live and walk. So we decided to believe her, because why wouldn't you believe her? That for this was real. This was her life, and her decision was to live. The process of speaking and walking took years. There was a long bout of hallucinations. These sometimes look scary, sometimes they seem kind of fun. Most of the time, she was changing. She was more delicate. She was further away, though she was always observant. But the fierceness changed. It was not directed outward towards the world. It was particularly in the last 3 years when she started to read deeply, a luminous inner glow. These past 7 years, a more private relationship, her inner light with herself, became more apparent. And once a good girl who cared for others, now with her broken body, she became present for herself. I used to think my mother was loving, present, and often courageous. Though after the accident, she shifted and led with courage. The courage to keep going and to practice the small things, to love her accomplishments. This courage made her more fiercely present. She had always been a listener, but she became present to a point where she seemed to be in conversation with silence. And that quietness shifted how she expressed love. She was grateful for each person she encountered. She was so sweet. And in the truest sense of the word, pure delight. That she seemed to fill up with a realness that was almost shocking. This was so deeply rewarding for me personally, to feel her at such a true level of herself, to be with her in her realness and her realness with me. One of the last moments together was when she allowed me to feed her dinner. They had brought a lot of food on a tray: chicken, potatoes, salad, avocado, melon. She was very relaxed. She'd say what she wanted to eat. First, some chicken, a little salad, but mainly avocado. She loved avocados so much. She ate one every day, always with some melon, and that night she laughed a bit and skipped the dinner and asked for bite after bite after bite of avocado, and then some melon, and then more avocado, and then she closed her eyes and smiled, full of joy. Wherever she is now, I hope they only serve avocado. That there are heaps of melon, that they all get to eat in a garden with lavender all around, and bite after bite she tastes what made her smile that night. Bite after bite, it is her favorite moment and favorite taste. For truly, to taste your life is to taste God. And to be present is to receive the very breath of the unknown. May her memory be a part of all of us. May her memory be for herself. May her memory be a blessing.
Sing one more song. The words are, it's called Higher and Higher. The chorus is Higher and Higher. I'm sure you people will catch on, and please feel free to sing along, and let's just holding Margaret up so high. She's already a high soul, which is her ascendant is felt so strongly in this space, and I just know will continue for all of us. And what a gift to be here, and I'm just so blessed to get to connect with her and be here with you, Sarah, and your family, and all of you.
Take me high, take me high, take me high. Lord, take me high, take me higher. Lord, take me high, take me high, take me high. Lord, take me high, take me higher.
just one prayer. Lord, let me live till that great moment comes when the whole world will sing just one song.
Thank you for that song. Margaret once told me that one of the things she missed and wished she had was to be able to stand in a meadow and dance. And there were often many times when I could just picture her. And today I just thought, here's Margaret as a little girl dancing in the meadow. I invite you to stand as you are able and join me in the words of committal and then benediction. And I'm reminding you that from this place is the third part of our service, which is the celebration of rejoicing in our social hall, and everybody here is invited. Pray with me. Holy and eternal God, who breathed life into our sister Margaret and continued to gift her with life for 87 years. Holy One, in your love you gifted us with this flower from your eternal garden. We return her to you in the full knowledge that she also remains with us. May she enjoy eternal rest in your loving arms. Amen. O love that will not let us go, we leave this service in peace, sadness, and joy. May Margaret's love remain with you all. May the love of God rest and abide with each and every one of you today and always. Amen. Amen. You may stay and listen to music. You may walk to the social hall.
Lord.